We are in bed with books. Thank you for joining us this week. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Bethany. If you'd like to find us outside of wherever you're listening from, then you can find us on our website, inbedwithbookspod.com, on Instagram at inbedwithbookspod, and find us on YouTube for video versions of the podcast and bonus episodes.
So let's jump right in.
Here we are. Our hair is braided.
Yes, out of my face for the most part.
Our noses are red from being sick.
And mine is healing.
Mine's laugh is raspy.
Is nice. Yeah.
But I have some nose spray in me. I'm drinking sleepy time tea, which will not put me to sleep because it doesn't put me to sleep. It just calms my throat down.
Yeah.
So hopefully I won't be coughing and blowing my nose and shit. So like I have been at work all day.
Or like I did the entire last episode.
Yeah. You're just like mute.
Yep. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
But things are looking up. The pollen count in Houston has, I don't know if it's gone down, but it has found other victims, not myself.
Yeah.
Which is a plus. That's all I can ask for.
Yeah, that's good. This is good. All right.
Oh yeah, so you're drinking sleepy time.
Yep.
I've got a home brewed hibiscus tea that I made. Yeah. It's very good. I really enjoy it. I made a lot this time so I could save it. And because it's getting really, really disgustingly warm out here again. And I really like iced tea during the summer.
Yeah.
And so I just made a bunch of it and I bottled it and I put it in the fridge. And I've been going through it all week.
Yeah.
Not going to lie, though, the hibiscus that I'm using is probably almost 2 years old.
That's fine.
Yeah, because it's dried.
It's an herb. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's a leaf or a flower. I think it's a flower petal.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a dried plant. Delicious. It'll be fine. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
It's probably better.
I mean, I can't attest to whether or not it's better, but I can say I'm still in love with it. So I love hibiscus tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I was just going to tell I got too high story, but I don't know if that's a podcast thing. Do we care?
You care? Well, it's legal where you are.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
Wanted to make sure we're on brand.
Yeah, no, I think it is on brand.
Last night I was telling you over Messenger today, but I was like, I need to fucking chill out. And I had half of an edible because edibles just like really like get to me. So I have to so taking a half was kind of a lot for me. And I drank a big mug of sleepy time tea because I was like, I just want to zonk out. I want to feel good. I want to sleep really well. I slept well. And then in my dream, I heard like yelling.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just like, something's wrong. And I couldn't get like my brain to like register what was going on. And it just like took forever to like come to. And then I woke up and realized I was like asleep and like, it's fine. And it was so weird. And then I was like kind of like high spinning, not like drunk spinning, but like there's this feeling of like, I need to get up to pee, but I don't know if I should.
Yeah. I feel like drunk spinning goes like this.
Yeah.
And high spinning goes like this.
Yeah, it does. It goes horizontal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then I was like, Milo is like still awake because he just sits there. He just lays next to me for 2 hours while I sleep, like until he falls asleep. He falls asleep probably the same time you do, like 2 or 3 a.m. He's just like
the curse.
Asleep. And so I wake up and I'm like, I'm so high. Like it like hit me like late or something anyways. And I made it to the bathroom, but I was like, oh my gosh. Anyway.
Without assistance, right? Or with assistance?
No, I mean, I used walls. But I I slept really good. I felt really good in the morning, so might do that again
Nice.
tonight. Who's
Nice.
to say I'll make it or not? I'll just get in the wheelie chair.
Yeah, as long as the walls are still there, then
Yeah.
I think you're safe.
I'll be okay.
Yeah, I feel like this week has just gone by really fast. Maybe it's just because I also started it off kind of still recovering from like basically being sick.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've just been catching up all week, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like it's been rough. It's just been unnecessarily stressful.
Yeah.
Kind of did it to myself, but whatever.
Yeah. I got sick and it knocked me out. And
Yeah.
you're laying in bed all day, but you don't feel rested. Like I don't feel like I laid in bed all week. Like it was just so
Well, because your body spends the entire
stressful.
time recovering. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like actively.
It's
Usually
not like
when you
I'm
sleep and
doing
you're
what
healthy.
I want. Yeah.
Yeah. When you sleep and you're healthy and you're recovering, you're going from like a -5 to your baseline.
Yeah.
But when you're asleep and you're sick and you're recovering, you're going from like a -40.
Yeah.
Up to like a -20.
Yeah.
You still haven't even reached like your normal body, what it needs, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You're like in such a deficit.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't even, like, there was that one day where I was like kind of writing and like doing stuff. That was a pipe dream because I like the next day I was like, oh God, this isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I can't even read. Like I can't, I couldn't like play a video game or anything. I had to just sit there and watch Bridgerton.
Yeah.
Like I had, so couldn't engage my brain.
Well, like when I get sneezy, congested, kind of sinusy sick, I can't do those things either because I have to spend half the time sneeze like with my hand on a tissue box.
Yeah.
You have to pause the game every 5 seconds to blow your nose because it's just dribbling straight out of your nose.
It's always the worst too, where you have like your eyes are watering all the time and you can't even look at anything. That's just so criminal.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was our fun, disgusting week.
Yep.
Being sick.
Yeah.
Lemmy. What are we talking about today, Melissa?
I am very excited to talk about this one.
Yeah.
So we are talking about The Once and Future Witches by Alix K, right? Alix E. Harrow. Alix E. Harrow. I suggested this book for this season, and I'm very happy that I did because I kind of feel like this might be my favorite book from the season.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. We still have a couple to talk about, of course. But I fucking loved this book with just so much of my heart. It was good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we let me just start crying about how much I love these characters, let's just do our thing.
Let's just
the
go
crying
into
will
it.
come.
Yeah.
The crying will come.
I had a feeling you really would like this. This felt very much like a Melissa book. Like
it did.
It was just like so. It was like it was just like fierce in all the right ways.
Yes.
And like very tactile, like the way in which like things were described. Everything was just like very like you could feel it, you could smell it, you could hear it. Like just the writing was just very tactile in that way. Yeah, I really liked that. Everything felt like a lot of times magic can feel very ethereal, but this felt very tangible.
Yeah.
I liked. I mean, like the magic system, like the magic lore, I should say, was very interesting, and I liked kind of the difference between like the daughters, where they, I think, Miss Quinn described it as, or someone did, was like the sisters used herbs and rhymes, and she says we use songs and spells, like, and
Yeah.
she sings spells, and like everyone kind of has like their different ways of like doing it. And I just love that.
Well, what I liked is how kind of rooted in like the way that people practiced not just like witchcraft, but like folk traditions. A lot of this was very like based in European traditions and based in like at the near the very end, they're talking about where Bella and Miss Quinn are picking up the new spells and the new ways and the words, right? And she talks about the different traditions that they're picking it up from. So like you got the Creole, you have Choctaw, you've got I think she mentioned Spanish, and throughout the book, all these stories that they're telling, because I love the way that Harrow like structures this, where you've got the actual kind of fairy tales interwoven with their story.
Yeah.
But like the story that Yulia tells, that's an actual Slavic myth of Koshi the Deathless.
Yeah.
And it's a much longer story in the original or in like the real one. But she's using these actual stories and these actual like ways that exist in tradition. And I love that.
Yeah.
As a historian, I loved every second of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I liked too, I can't remember his name, but he Blackwell. Was it Blackwell that also told a story? There was a man that told a story.
It was Gideon.
Oh, I thought it was a good witch, like a good man.
I mean, maybe it was earlier on.
I can't remember, but I just liked that it was like kind of that's kind of how everyone kind of brought their way forward.
Yeah,
right? Was like bringing their own story. It was really cool.
Maybe Gideon, or maybe Blackwell did, and I just don't remember. I did like, because I mean the whole book is a lot of, well, like the quote that we're using on that post is, magic is kind of, for women, it's where between what we have and what we need or what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this universe as well, I mean, it's patriarchal society, and so men kind of have this power already. They don't need magic. And so the discovery as well that men can even use women's ways is huge, because nobody even tries anymore because they don't think they need it.
Yeah.
But then you have people like August or Jenny who are masculine or assigned male at birth, or who are like men now and use the ways, even though they don't know if they can, because they've got the words and the will.
I loved, was it the crone, or the one that was telling the story of the three witches?
I think it was the crone.
Three. And I bookmarked it. It's I love, because Bella like interrupts her.
Yes.
And then Bella says, "But how could a man work witchcraft?" Oh, is the maiden that told the story. She says, "You think magic cares what's between your legs or how you do your hair?" And then Bella, and it's like Bella does not interrupt again. Like, yeah, I love that.
And that's also the first time where one of the stories is interrupted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I liked because it kind of interplays the way that the maiden, mother, and crone, one, are these archetypes, and the way that like they're living on. And there's a line that Juniper has somewhere where like this is an actual kind of I guess like idiom, but about how like you don't die until the last person alive knows you dies. Like you die your second death. And so the fact that like they've tied themselves to witchcraft, and so as long as witchcraft exists, they are witchcraft. Like they will live on as these, they were people, but they are also now these archetypes that are going to continue on and keep fighting the fight.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love everything about this book.
I know.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get into the book
Yes.
though first. You're welcome to start.
Okay, so we have 3 sisters.
Yes.
We have Juniper, who we meet first, who feels kind of like I would say the central sister that begins to move the plot forward.
Yeah.
We kind of start with her. Oh, she was abandoned by her sisters, all of that. And then I think I can't remember which one you meet next, Bella or Agnes, but it might have been Agnes. Are the other 2. And who we were talking about, I was like, I have my favorite, and you're like, don't tell me. And I was like, yeah. I think we should guess each other's favorite.
Yes.
And then also you said to guess which one or to say which one we think we are, or
yeah, I was thinking like who our
like
favorite is, and then who we think we're actually the most like, because it's probably not the same ones. But I do want to say real quick, I do agree that Juniper is the lead.
Yeah.
Like she's kind of the main character. One, because she starts and finishes the book.
Yeah.
And because a lot of the action only happened because she took action. And that's kind of like her role as the maiden of the 3 sisters, it feels like.
Yeah.
Because of, she's the first one to charge into the tower when they find the Tower of Babylon.
Yeah.
The library. And she's the one who joins the sisters.
She's the one that leads everyone and starts it.
Yeah.
And insists on it. Yeah.
She's the active participant in the story. The other 2 for a long portion of the book are following her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. I think your favorite is Bella.
Wrong.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. There's only 3 of us. There's only 3, so we only get one guess. I feel like.
Yeah.
So, okay, guess mine.
Juniper.
No.
Bella.
No.
We both love Agnes?
No. Oh, okay. That is a podcast first.
First, everyone. Podcast first.
Where
Agnes.
we agree on who we like in the book.
That's great. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So what did you like about Agnes?
I think okay. Stepping back a second and looking at all 3, they all kind of cope with the trauma of the way that they grew up together differently.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of like these 3 various ways that people could cope with that. You have Bella, who closed up.
Yeah.
Like she's got a stutter for probably like the first half of the book. Really scared. She's really like, even as she's studying and she's trying to find the words in the library, she's like actively denying what she's doing, even to herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved one of the ways that Harrow writes her at first, because she has her parentheses where she hides her secrets as she's thinking and as she's like telling her part of the story. Juniper obviously chose to just be riotous against it.
Yeah.
Which I respected hardcore. But Agnes like hardens, and I could feel that, you know what I mean? Agnes talks about the circle, the small circle you have so that you can get by. Mm-hmm. And the way you have to open up that circle, that like fear of intimacy that she has, that fear of vulnerability with people, because on the one hand, it means people can hurt you, but on the other hand, it means that they can be used against you. And she kind of, the journey that she goes through with the book, where she learns to open up that circle, and then she learns what it means to have that circle open.
Yeah.
That was beautiful arc.
Yeah.
And also, Agnes E is like a fucking heartthrob.
Oh my God.
I can't even fully put into words. As they were getting ready to kind of, the day before they were about to run into the fire, literally. And she's kind of like, well, do you trust me? And his whatever he says is something along the lines of like, I will follow you wherever you go. And my heart just fell straight out of my butt. Just like it fluttered out of my body.
Yeah.
I also, okay. Fun fact about Melissa. I love old movies. I absolutely love old movies. And one of my favorite dynamics in old movies is like what Agnes and August have, which is that kind of like, she's this wild woman and he's not looking to tame her and he's in love with her fire and everything. And I love that. I absolutely love their love story.
Yeah.
He never for a second judged her for Eve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I like, there was a moment with, I mean, okay, number one, I have a soft spot for the name Agnes.
Okay.
I started writing a story with that name because I really liked it. So I was already warmed up to her for that. But also I liked, there was towards the beginning of her story, I like kind of her, the role in which she is in, I kind of relate with in that way, which is it's a role of service, right? She's always like, or she was working at the cotton mill, but I can't remember, but it was, my memory fails me, but she was describing like working like in the service of kids and like community, and like, wasn't she in like some kind of work that was like helping kids?
So yeah,
stuff?
she talked
like
about
she
how
would
when she
babysit or something.
When she first moved to New Salem,
mm-hmm.
she would see these little girls that were just kind of lost and she would try to help them.
Yeah.
And then one day, I can't remember exactly what happened, but one of them like got hurt and it hurt her.
Right.
And so after that point, she made her circle smaller.
Right. But there was this sense of this duty that she seemed to have with taking care of others, which I kind of understand. And then later when you kind of find out she's pregnant and she has the baby, there's this moment when she is like, this is what a mother is. And then she talks about it's not being this like weepy weak thing. There's like this completely new strength, and it's like fierce. And I just loved that you could feel that like shift happen with her when she realized what it meant to be a mother, and how it's like not, I just loved that. I thought it was just so well written, and it made me understand it differently. And I was just like, wow. I just loved that for her.
Yeah. And I remember thinking how unfortunate it was that her mother asked her to take care of Juniper, because
yes, that's what it was, because she was the one that took care of everyone around.
Yeah. So kind of part of it is like, well, like part of it is that's the role she was forced into as a kid, which is like, she's not that much older than Juniper.
Yeah.
And so to have this like child, to ask this child to take care of another child is a big ask. Yeah. But she also saw her mom die from childbirth, saw the way that like her mom had to like make herself smaller to protect the girls, to protect her and her sister. And then I remember at some point she talks about how Mama Mags told her that it was really common in their family for women to die during childbirth. And so she goes in with so many like preconceptions about what it means to be a mother. And so she thinks it's this like bloody, deadly kind of experience, but it's when she earns her familiar that, or I guess I would argue that it's her finding that second well of strength, that sudden new source of strength that earns her familiar Pan.
Yeah. Yeah. There was also the moment when she rejected the
fight.
Yeah, the fight.
Yeah.
And when, that like visceral fear that she had, because she just the pushing everyone out, just taking care of her and her baby. I feel like she had some of the most pain, I think everyone had pain, but like hers was like multiplied now with this baby.
So,
and this sense of obligation that she had to Juniper, and the guilt of all of that, and then having just so much on her plate, and is she ready to go through this entire risk? And that kind of decision was huge. And so I just thought she had the most I think one of the most interesting arcs.
Yeah. I think she's the only one in the book who's like actively experiencing pain though.
Yeah.
Whereas the others, whenever they have something happen, like granted Juniper was kidnapped, we knew it was so early in the book that it's gonna fix itself.
Yeah.
And all of the hardship that Bella goes through is really just kind of rehashing old hardships.
Yeah.
Whereas
it's more memory.
Agnes has,
yeah,
like this kind of, Agnes has this very active current dilemma.
Yeah.
And it affects all three girls, not just her.
Yeah.
Like you feel that no matter which of the sisters you connect with, you could feel how scared they all were for Eve.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like Juniper too, her anger was very much more like a part of her personality.
Yeah.
And like moving and doing the thing, like it informed her like decisions. And Bella is definitely more like, let's just pretend everything's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's her mechanism.
Yeah, no, for sure. Juniper even admits, though later she's like, I started this fight out of anger and vengeance, and I'm going to finish it with love in my heart for all of these women and men who have come to fight with us. I think the thing with Bella is like, sorry. I think the thing with Bella is that as much as she wants to keep the peace, she realizes pretty early on that sitting and doing nothing is not going to keep the peace.
Yeah.
Sitting and doing nothing is, I mean, what is the woman's name? Grace Wiggins. She sits and keeps the peace. And she's a pretty ugly person. Granted, she's had her shadow and her will taken by a shadow man.
Yeah.
But yeah, she is not doing the end result isn't what Bella wants if you just sit and do nothing.
Yeah, and I love how they all kind of bring it out of each other. You know, the like I feel like Juniper and Bella kind of work well together. Like when Agnes isn't there. But Agnes is like this like this stronghold of like reason. Like,
Yes.
because
Oddly
Bella's
enough,
the fear, Bella's like the safety, Juniper's like the like the risk,
mhm.
and then Agnes is like the middle. She's kind of like the backbone a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so who do you think you're the most like?
I think I'm a healthy mix of Agnes and Juniper. I'm definitely the mom friend, and that's not like, I know it's really fun to say that sometimes because like you provide a Kleenex once, but like genuinely when it comes to like protecting my friends and taking care of them after a night out, like I'm the mom friend. I stay sober half the time so I can take care of the people that need to be taken care of. But I do connect. I do like really connect with Juniper's fire.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's why she reminded me the most of you. I thought you would like appreciate the action part of
yeah,
like and that fire and all of that. I actually was thinking that you might have been a mixture between June and Bella because Bella is such a like researcher.
mm-hmm. I think I just don't.
That's more of a hobby.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's just what she does. But her as a person, I really don't connect with.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm probably Bella. I know.
But that's why we pair
Bella.
well.
I'm sorry, Bella. Yeah.
That's why we pair so well together. So
probably Bella and Agnes. I'm on the other end.
yeah.
But I will say this. I was thinking when I was reading it is that what I love about these three women is that each of them are incredibly fierce and incredibly fragile in ways that are not predictable. You know, like you could, it's not an archetype, right? Like like Agnes is the mother, but she's not like, you know, like, I guess what am I trying to say is that like you would kind of assume like Bella would be the character that would be the mother, right? Because she's like softer and fragile. But I love that it's like just like flipped on its head a lot because it's not based out of reality. That's based off of like, you know, just like a very,
it's like flat fairy tale.
Exactly.
Kind of figures,
and I just love how complex they are. Yeah. That's just what I noticed the most. I was just like I was blown away by these characters.
Same. Honestly, same. Like I love all three of them. Even in moments when they're unlikable, she makes them so human.
Yeah.
So real, so like multi-dimensional. And I do like the way that she kind of plays with our idea of what the archetypes are. Especially because, so I was reading the author bit in the back. Give me just a moment here. Where are you? Here we go. She is a former academic and adjunct. So she's learned.
Yes.
And it doesn't really say what she did. So I'm just going to safely assume that it was something literary related in some way, or that she's done research, generally speaking. But when you look at like the crone figures include like Baba Yaga. You got the witches who like take Rapunzel up to the top of the tower, or the one from the Hansel and Gretel story, which turns out to be like super important in their story.
I love that.
Same. But when you kind of look at the historical precedent of a crone figure, why would an old woman be alone or have lived her life alone? And like there's obviously like the very easy, simple answers, which is, you know, sometimes husbands die. Sometimes any number of things can happen, but also sometimes old women are lesbians and they live with other lesbians and they get written in history as old crones living together.
Yeah.
Old spinsters friends that took up together.
Yeah.
And so I kind of love that the crone figure ends up being gay. And then there's a line that Juniper has early on where she talks about kind of, if I'm the maiden in our story, the maiden and like stories in like fairy tales and the witch words are usually not corrupted, but they're usually turned wild. But Juniper already was.
Yeah.
Like she's a maiden only in the very, very literal basic term, which is she's probably never had sex. But otherwise, I was going to say like as wild as they come, but she's wilder. She is nearly feral.
Yeah.
She walks around with this cane that she can turn into a snake to kill men. Kill people generally, but she's used it pretty exclusively on men. And so that when you think about where she would be in the story, nobody turns her wild. Nobody corrupts this sweet maiden. She goes around corrupting people.
Yeah.
And I love that for her.
Yeah.
I think maybe I can't really think of a way that Agnes as the mother figure turns anything upside down. But I do like the way that the people around her, generally speaking, the nice people around her, the good people around her that we're meant to like, don't judge her for having a child out of wedlock. Floyd, her like the baby daddy. I absolutely hate when guys are like, I'm gonna make you an honest woman. Like, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
I hate that phrase so much. Even when like Bella and Cleo used it later, I was still like, that's gross. I don't like that phrase. But like August never cared, not for a single second, that she was pregnant and clearly didn't have a husband or a boyfriend. The second he realized that she wasn't attached to anybody, he was like, all right, she's mine.
Yeah.
That was it. He decided right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the way that they were the archetypes, but they also were like a more real version of them.
Yeah. And, well, isn't the maiden of the story too supposed to kind of be saved by the man?
Yep.
And I wouldn't say Agnes is saved by August, but she's the one that gets the guy, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And not that it doesn't even mention it at all, but I think it goes without saying that, like, you know, now like Eve has a dad, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think in that day that's important. So I feel like it kind of like was tidy in an kind of its unconventional way in terms of like the maiden and the mother.
Yeah, agreed. Well, she trusted August with Eve without even a second thought.
Yeah.
She had him go save her from the lost stars or the lost souls or whatever it was, lost hearts.
Yeah.
What a heartthrob.
Oh yeah. I love that. I love that scene. Love that scene at the end when they're like getting burned, or they're about to, and he's like, there was some sound he made. I can't remember, but it was like she was like they were like confessing their love and all of these things, and he like made a sound, and it was just like so sweet. I can't remember what it was because
It's okay.
I don't remember things I hear, but I felt it.
Yeah, you felt it. Yeah, we all felt it.
We all felt it. And
yes.
It was just like so, like it was like he like, you know, breathed out a breath he thought he was holding or something like that. Like, and I was like, I feel it, August. I feel it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What?
I'm just thinking about August. Sorry. I love the number of times that they were just sitting at that bar at like the socialist bar, sitting across from each other. I mean, that's probably another reason that I liked her, because she's going into this place and she, whatever she says about, after she says the big long title about like the kind of people that go there, it implies that she really enjoys it and she'd probably spend more time there. And I was like, you sound like me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Heavy
She
support
feels like
for
she
that.
belongs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the part where they go into the tower to meet the three witches.
Yes.
And they describe each of the sisters. I love that shit.
Same.
That
was one of those really like sensual parts of the movie.
Yeah.
The movie.
It felt like a movie.
Well, there was just so much detail and it didn't feel like too much. You know, like sometimes people will bog you down with like just over describing things. It felt just right. It felt perfect.
Yeah. It felt necessary.
Yeah.
I like, so this is another reason why I liked, so Agnes Agnes Amaranth is the strong sister, steady as a stone and twice as hard. She walks second into the tower. She's never liked mother's stories much. They make her think of her own mother and wish she'd been someone else, someone who would have sent their daddy running for the hills the first time he raised a hand against her, someone like the mother herself. Mothers are supposed to be weak, weepy creatures, women who give birth to their children and drift peacefully into death, but the mother is none of those things. She's the brave one, the ruthless one, the witch who traded the birthing chamber for the battlefield, the kitchen for the knife. She is bloody Boudica and heartless Hera, the mother who became a monster. And I just love that. That's
Same.
that's just, I just love that.
Are you gonna cry?
I just love that. I'm feeling it in my chest. Like I just love that so much.
No, that's how I felt when I read that part. Like you could feel it. I think what I liked about meeting the last three, you know, the quote unquote last three, even though we know it's not the last three, is the fact that they are just normal. They aren't real sisters. They have that conversation about like, well, what brought us together in the square that day? And they're like, we don't know. Maybe just the fact that you three were there. At any given time, a woman is a maiden, mother, or a crone. One woman could have called us.
Yeah.
Because I think it really breaks down the like rules of the magic there in this very realistic way, in this very simple way, because I think it has to be the very like the exact words, and it has to be as all the will you can muster, and you have to already have the ways in your blood. Like that line when she's like, they don't give a shit what's between your legs or how you do your hair. Because it really comes down to the fact that any of them could do magic at any point. After that point is when they kind of just start using spells really loosely. They're like, well, it's for this. So, I mean, in theory, it could work for this. And I've got the will to make it work. So it's going to work.
Yeah.
They stopped limiting themselves.
Yeah. It's not this exclusive thing. It's this thing that's accessible to everyone, which is very socialist.
Yes, it is. And it's not exclusive by sex, but it's also not exclusive by like knowledge.
Yeah.
And bloodline or knowledge, because think about how important it was to Bella that all these things got written down exactly as they are. And then when we get to the kind of afterward, kind of her and Miss Quinn are out and about, she describes spending the last few months trying to get the library back together. And there's just so many forms of magic that aren't even going to fit on a page. You can't put it down in ink. And so how do you You just have to hope that those forms of witchcraft live on.
Yeah.
It's that like that oral tradition.
Yeah. Well, and kind of how like the different cultures came about it as well through their lore and their practices. Like singing it or cooking it, like recipes and all of these. Love it.
Same, like the same end goal, but with different means. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, even with the kind of sad ending, which, I mean, I'm just going to spoil it. We spoil things here.
Yeah.
Even though like Juniper died and she's bound, so she will live on in this kind of in-between form. It was a heartwarming book. It was this strangely hopeful book.
Yeah.
I think because of like that sense of sisterhood and the women's empowerment without it being just women, because you have these men who are also actively fighting with them because they can see someone in need and they're like, well, that's what we do. We help people in need.
Yeah.
And I just love that.
Yeah, there's this sense of, and honestly, I think that's what Juniper really brings to the table, which is like, because without her, this book would be sad.
Yeah.
Even though she's the one that like dies, she is the hope. She is the one that sees the future of witches. And Agnes finds like meaning, right? And like a need for that community. And then like, you know, and Bella is able to like foster that within like her library. And so I really like June's role. June. They call her June, right?
Yeah.
James Juniper. What is it? James Juniper
Eastwood.
That's what it is.
Yeah. And I think in some ways Juniper had to die at the end because so much of her hope comes from like her being the maiden in their like triad. And at the very end, it's not that hope is gone, but she's no longer capable of being the maiden. And so you have this, I mean, very literal, but also kind of symbolic burning of that image for her. And she becomes just a witch. Like she becomes this ever-living symbol of feral witchcraft to help the next generation of sisters and daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like she couldn't have lived past that moment. They needed her, like Bella and Agnes needed her. The story could not have gone forward without them because they needed that youthful hopefulness, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But now they've been changed and they'll be able to live on doing the work that they need to do. But there's no way, like, Juniper has to be frozen in that moment to do what she needs to do. So she's going to live on as this kind of image of herself as a 17-year-old mountain feral child.
Yeah.
So that she can give hope to the next generations for however long they remember and however long they'll have her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I can't really imagine what she would have done afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, she probably would have had crusades and campaigns like they all are having. I kind of like where everyone ended up though. Like,
no, yeah, same.
Yeah, like Agnes is in Chicago with August, and they're like working on all of like the laborers and stuff. And then
direct action.
Yeah, like, direct, like on the fucking ground.
So good.
I know, that's why
good.
That's why August is your Yes. You love August.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I love August too. I'm there, man.
He was literally willing to follow her into the fire. He jumped into fire to save her sister without a second thought. Okay. I'm going to just keep going on about him. So please continue. Tell me about Bella and where she ended up.
Yeah. So, and then Bella's in New Orleans, and
Yeah.
they're like, they're which is already kind of a melting pot of like
Yeah.
different cultures, and so then they're just like trying to like get it all down of like all of the different witches and stuff, witchcraft. So like I love that for them. But she's writing a book, which I also love that she's like trying to figure out a title for the book, and you're like, oh no, she's gonna say it. She's gonna say it.
the
And
title
she
of the
does not
book.
say
I
it.
know.
But I'm like, I don't care because we all know.
Yes.
We all know. And that's what I
Yes.
love about it is like it goes unsaid, but like we know. And I think there's, oh my God, it's like another level. It's so meta of just like, if you
We're
know,
the witches.
we're the witches. Yes.
We're the witches reading her book now. Yes.
Yes. We're the witches. And she doesn't need to like spell it out for us.
Yep.
Like we know. We know it's called.
Because we have the words and we have the will.
Will.
Yep. Don't, you're gonna make me cry. I love books that do that. I cannot express to you how many times I almost cried during this book because of the number of times where because they have that big conflict, which is the day when their lives kind of fell apart. They got separated for good. And they all have this different idea of what happened that day.
Mm-hmm.
Either because they just made assumptions, or they didn't speak up for themselves, or they blocked it out of their memory.
Yeah.
But at one point or another, before we find out the truth about that moment, about that day, they all think about how betrayed they feel by the other and have this kind of, fuck it, she's my sister, I'm going to go help her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that the way that they don't, even afterwards, they have these conflicts still. And so the way that they just set these, like their love for each other is still so deep, and you can feel how deeply they still love each other regardless of this conflict. And they just set it down and they go try to save their sisters one way or another. So good.
I also liked how rocky it was for them.
Yeah.
Like
it was real.
They're all very independent. Like they're not in need of, they're not, it became very clear early on in the book. Sorry. It became very, very clear early on in the book that this wasn't this sweet, sappy story of sisterhood. Because they all have very complicated relationships with each other and their past and their pain. And like Juniper is right off the bat, her sisters abandoned them, but she's still looking for them, but she's still not willing to accept all of them yet. Right. Yeah. There's still those like reservations. Bella is hurt by Agnes's betrayal, and Agnes is just dealing with her own shit. And then by the time it all kind of comes to a head, they've already started building this. So they're like building this thing within this conflict with each other.
Yeah.
And then their personal like quabbles like kind of surface, and then they realize the truth and realize, oh, yes, you're my sister and I love you, but this still hurts. And then you realize that how easy it mends because of learning the truth, right? And so I love how that locks into place like out of order.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Especially because it does kind of bring back that question of how much of it was fate. Because it's not like they were all just lying to themselves while still trying to set this up in hopes somebody would apologize. But like real problems were happening that kept causing them to run back into each other.
Yeah.
Like their paths kept intertwining. And And I think that's why I really like, I agree, I really like where each of them end up. Because they don't end up all at the tower all the time. They don't just live there now. Like, Bella lives in New Orleans with Miss Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
And she occasionally visits the library.
Mm-hmm.
And then Agnes and August live typically in Chicago, it sounds like, but occasionally visit Avalon. And so now it's not so much that they're running from each other while living in the same city,
Right.
but that they're constantly running towards each other.
Yeah.
Back home to each other, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the threads, those threads they describe between each other.
Mm-hmm.
They have to constantly go back to it.
Yeah. Like they're able to have their separate families.
Mm-hmm. But they're now closer than ever, even though
Yeah.
they're farther from each other than they've ever been.
Yeah. And even June having being the youngest
Mm-hmm.
and the one that was at home. I shouldn't say the longest, but the latest.
Mm-hmm.
She was the last to leave home. I forget. The tower goes back to their house, right? They put the tower.
That's what
at
it
their
sounds
house.
like. Yeah.
And so she said she wanted it there because she wanted to be there. So it was almost
Mhm.
like this need to for her to return home.
Yeah.
And also I love the statement where she says Eve will come and visit me, and it's like having
It's like
two
she's
people
outnumbered.
around. Yeah, she's like outnumbered. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Which is from what I understand
from Juniper is like saying a lot.
Yeah, from what I understand is typically how babies go.
Yeah.
Which is why I would say I'm probably more like Juniper than Agnes most of the time.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just a beautiful story of these three sisters. Beautiful in a very kind of carnal way, I guess. Like this, when you look at something terrifying and you can only think of how beautiful it is, you know?
Like the sublime.
Shut up. I was trying not to say that word. Do I have to I don't know, take a shot now? Please don't make me.
I won't.
But yeah, like this, not beautiful in this like in a fairy tale way, but beautiful in this kind of heart-wrenching way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very cathartic.
It was.
It felt, which is what I love about it, because like there's nothing more I don't know, I don't want to be like binary or anything, but like there's nothing more like female than like a birth, you know, of something.
Yeah.
Or just like feeling something out physically, right? And and that can be said of anyone. I'm just saying, like, I think it's very cathartic in that way, and I think it was meant to be, because that is what a witch is.
Yeah.
Is you have to that is the will, right? Which is the moving it out of you and out into the world. And I just love that.
I think what's interesting is that a lot of times when you think about like a catharsis at the end of a book, you think about this very defined point of an ending. Mm-hmm. Like a story, you've got the natural progression of a story, which is like the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, stop. But this somehow manages to have a very cathartic ending with a very open ending.
Yes. It reminds me of that book that I got that talks about how what you described, this art, is a very like masculine way of creating a story. Yeah. And this felt very like just a lot of moving parts but just like it starts really low and it kind of wobbles, and then it kind of goes up and then it stays into this kind of unknown, right?
I would say the story was definitely more character driven than plot driven.
Yeah.
And then looking at the way they just like disjoint that plot with the stories, like the little fairy tales, those women's words told down through the ages. It's a very feminist book.
Yeah.
And I love that.
It is.
I love that.
Yeah. I loved listening to it.
I did about half and
was
half.
good.
The narrator was very good. Very, very good. Her voices were so distinct.
Yeah. She was able to do each of the three so differently.
Yep. And so perfectly.
Yeah.
So good. I liked too. So the first couple of fairy tales in the book I read. I didn't listen to them. So I didn't realize at first that it was the person telling the story. And then I listened to the next one and she tells it from that person's voice. And then at first I was like, oh, that's cool. She kind of uses whoever's voice she was using last. But then Yulia tells a story. Yulia tells the story of Koshi the Deathless. And that was the first time that I realized that these little snippets weren't just snippets.
Story.
They were part of this plot, part of this book. It wasn't just thrown in there for like shits and giggles.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of felt like each person was kind of telling their story, just listening to it. Because I guess if you were to read it, you would never know if that was Yulia or not. But it was more of just an introduction into that like kind of Slavic.
You wouldn't even know until the maiden or the maiden is telling the story of the last three witches when Bella interrupts. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And so that's another exhibit A, Your Honor, of this being Bella's notebook.
Yeah.
Because she talks about it being part grimoire, which is the beginning of each of the chapters, part memoir, part fairy tales. Yep. Okay, opinions on Gideon Hill.
So he is Hansel.
Yes.
And Gretel was his sister, of course.
The maiden.
Okay. And so they must have gone into a house.
Into what? Sorry.
A house.
Yeah. I kind of liked that. I mean, obviously I hate him. Obviously. He's a very hateable character. Like Juniper says, he makes it very easy to hate him. But I like that his story isn't something crazy, complicated. It's a classic story of a man wanting control. He does it with Gretel because as he's burning her, he even asks the final time, I can still forgive you. As if she's the one that needs to be forgiven. Because all he can see is this betrayal, this like abandonment, when in reality, he's the one who was becoming evil. And he talks about the price he's willing to pay, but it's this plague that he starts just simply by existing because of the manner in which he's bound his soul. And I feel like a lot of times men like this can feel so much bigger than they are, when in reality, the same shit that fuels them fuels like the shitty men in your own life. And that's not to say that like the shitty men in your own life are just as terrible or like as maniacally evil, but that those big men that you fear, like on the news or on the internet where we see them nowadays, but they're just as small actually as the other men in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
This in like a nihilistic way, this kind of, they are just as meaningless at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
They can be taken down just like anybody else.
Yeah.
Because sometimes those things can feel too big, too big to take on.
Yeah. Yeah, he felt very small.
In the end, yeah.
Yeah. There are a lot of parallels too with their dad. Like,
yeah.
It kind of goes unsaid, but I think it was definitely a conquering of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of hoping that Juniper would get his familiar.
The wolf?
But then she got her own bird, which is fair. Because her sisters have birds. It'd be weird if she had a wolf. That's fine.
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, wolves are cool. Wolves are cooler than birds, but that's fine.
That's fine.
Okay.
Last thoughts?
Let me think. I liked the little tidbits of representation in very outward ways, where you've got Jenny, who's trans, but then also kind of in smaller ways where you have Mr. Blackwell, who's older, and for no other reason than him being kind of quiet, is also alone. And so I like her portrayal of these varying lives that one can live and still find community. So
yeah, that was really nice.
That is my final thought.
Your final thought. See, my final thought. I feel like there was so much thought that went into this. This did not feel, we we read a lot of YA, which I'm not going to say doesn't have a lot of thought that goes into it, but there was so much, it's so rich.
Yeah.
So full of lore, of like texture, of history, of representation, and historical, but also modern feminism. Like there's even like a shout out. They were like, she wanted to name the book A Vindication
of the Rights of Witches. Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, girl. So I just loved it. I have seen in my Google searches I saw a movie somewhere and I just thought, wouldn't that be cool? But I don't know if you know how Google searches are like a someone's dream, like someone just like types it enough, but it's not real
enough.
Yeah. But I would love to see this on film.
Oh yeah, same. Hold on, let me see. I've got to look it up now. So. Okay. Can we also talk about the very last line of the book? Yes. Which is just, once upon a time, there were 3 witches. If we want to talk about kind of this open-ended ending again.
Yes.
That I am a sucker for books that do that. It sometimes will just give me a little knot in my chest, like this potential. I love it.
Well, because you don't want books to end.
Yeah.
Like this probably more than any other book I've read feels like a continue, like it's going to continue. It's continuing. Like
Yeah.
There is this like kind of at the end where I was like, oh, it felt very meta. It is because you feel like you're a participant in this.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you can see yourself in these characters, yes, but you also are in on this like secret. You know,
Mhm.
you're in on the will. Like,
Yeah.
and I just think it's timeless, you know. And
It
it
makes you
speaks
feel
to
like you're part of
everyone.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I couldn't find anything on a movie.
Damn.
I think it'd be a very good movie though.
So it was published in 2020.
Yeah.
So it's fairly new.
Yeah.
But it's got I just saw a lot of articles on it, and so
Yeah, same.
Like,
That's when I Googled that.
really well.
It was just even like NPR articles. Like that's whew,
Yeah.
big name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love the sense that we get to live this story
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I interrupted your final thoughts though.
No, that was it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Good read.
good read. I'm going to think about this for the rest of my life. This is probably a book that I will happily reread.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is a big sign of approval coming from Melissa.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are we talking about next week?
So next week we are talking about the book Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Also recommended by you, Melissa.
Yes.
And we are having a special guest.
Yes. Next week, we're going to have Jess from the Peaking podcast. So
Yes.
you should definitely check out her podcast. It's
Absolutely
really good. We will let her tell you about it next week, though. So I will not break the ice on that one.
Yeah. We're really excited. We've only ever had one other guest on here, and so we're excited to kind of expand, you know,
it's
and
not somebody one of us lives with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love you, Taylin.
We do.
Yeah.
It feels very big though to have somebody else on the
that
podcast.
We don't know. Like I literally cold turkey reached out to Jess and was like, "Oh my gosh, I love your podcast." And
yeah.
So it's really exciting to like grow up as a podcast and graduate.
Put on our big boy pants.
Yeah, and have like people on, and something I think we want to do in the future, like once a season, is have like a new person on to like read a book and talk about it. So very excited to talk about Their Eyes Were Watching God, though.
Another beautiful book. The language in that is
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. I'm just getting excited about it. Okay.
Yes.
So until next week, happy reading.
Happy reading.
Bye.
Bye.